One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me, I have Mo from Drunken Master Studios. Welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Last week we went on with Howard Ziehm's Flesh Gordon, and this week we are going on with an almost 20-year sequel from 1990 from Howard Ziehm called Flesh Gordon Meets the Cosmic Cheerleaders. I'm just going to read a little summary from IMDb here about the film. Space-faring hero and galactic renowned stud Flesh Gordon is kidnapped by a group of space cheerleaders hoping to use him to save their planet. Being simply known as evil presence has been rendering the men of their world impotent, and the women are desperate for some form of relief. Flesh's girlfriend Ardor, meanwhile, is following behind to try to keep him out of trouble, but soon finds herself kidnapped by evil presence's henchman who has plans of his own. Can Flesh get the men of this planet standing tall once again?
I think he can.
Was this a first time watch for you?
It was. It definitely won't be the last, but it was definitely a first experience for me.
Okay. And what do you think about this film in comparison to the previous film that we had watched? Do you think that there's a difference?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned last episode, it definitely is a product of the time that it came out. I'm pretty sure it was probably made in the late 80s, which 1990 was basically the 80s still anyways, so not much changed in that year rollover, so right from the beginning, like opening credits, that this is very clearly an 80s movie, where the other one had a lot more of that pulpy science fiction feel to it. This has almost like a trauma movie quality to it that I really enjoyed.
It does. Yeah. It does. I mean, it definitely does have that trauma-esque-ness about it, and I think that that kind of plays in part to how the film played out. So obviously, this is a different actor playing Flesh.
Yep.
And so. In the very beginning of the film, we have these cheerleaders that are evidently part of Screw.
What was that? Was it like secret cheerleaders for the rehabilitation of erections worldwide, or Society of Cheerleaders for the rehabilitation of erections worldwide?
Yeah,
a noble cause, to say the least.
You have to put some kind of intelligence behind all of the different innuendos that go on throughout this film, and even though I know there were a lot of innuendos in the first one, there are definitely a lot of innuendos in this particular film too. And
you could see the humor shifted a little bit from like dicks and ass to like poop and farts, but that was still pretty fun, I'd say they're pretty clever with most of it until they're just straight up hanging out with a tribe of shit people, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Well, I know that Flesh's girlfriend Ardor, when she shows up, she kind of has a bitchy attitude at first. She's got that fucking ugly 80s hairstyle where it looks like the bangs were like pulled back, and
Flesh has got a pretty glorious hairdo this time around though too, I must say.
Right, he's almost got like if you thought of Saved by the Bell with AC Slater, except put Zach Morris's blonde hair on him.
Yeah, just as if they did like a fusion Dragon Ball Z style, that's pretty much what you'd get is this dude.
So ultimately, he gets kidnapped, and then we return to the characters of Flexi Jerkoff and his girlfriend Ardor, who are left to go after Flesh Gordon in the wake of his kidnapping, and they end up using a different ship powered by chickens.
Powered by chickens fucking. That's, it's just powered by banging. So in theory, like he's talking about adjusting it for people so you could just bang your way across the fucking galaxy. It's pretty great. They have to suck on those little nipple things to stabilize themselves as they fucking take off. It's amazing.
It is. I wonder if there was any kind of space ship that was made like this. I wonder if you could actually power a spaceship by chickens fucking in some way, shape, or form. I would love to see if
you never know.
It actually happened. I mean, a lunar mission module of some sort.
Just powered by banging chickens.
It doesn't have to be just chickens. It could be turtles. It could be anything, you know?
See, and there's that running theme, too. I mean, we'll cross it later, but Flesh has to participate in some chicken fucking at some point. He ends up having to like take one for the team in both the movies, which I thought was like a funny as shit recurring sequence there. Couple of different times in this one.
Yes,
pretty terrible. Sure.
So as they are banging across the galaxy, they run into an asteroid belt. What did you think about that?
I just thought it was amazing. That's one of those. I mean, really, as soon as you get to that part at the beginning where they're on the movie set and Flesh accidentally stomps on that thing and it launches that girl up King Kong's ass and like shit flies all over the director, you kind of knew what you were in for. But I thought maybe that was a one-off thing. Nope, we're going full in on the fucking fart humor here, and I just could not stop laughing, especially when he lubed up that fucking cork to launch at its butthole so that they could stop the gas from coming out or whatever.
Who the hell keeps like these gigantic ass butt plugs on hand just to go through an asteroid belt, you know?
Well, you know, old Flexi Jerkoff, he's known for being pretty prepared, and you know, he is flying a chicken fucker ship across the galaxy, so I imagine he was prepared for all type of outcomes there, and having a big old bucket of petroleum to lube up those corks just seemed like a good preparation to me. I don't know.
I guess I got a kick out of the fact that they could hyperspeed them chicken fucking things across the galaxy.
Yeah, it was great. I loved how it like slung them all the way to the back of the ship and shit. It was funny.
Of course, they had to make fun of the black hole.
Well, and they kind of riffed on the Star Wars scene where they're in the gun turrets when she was like going around firing the corks into all the buttholes. That was pretty cool too. I thought that was neat since we just did do some Star Wars shit last week. So,
well, I love how it took a woman to get a straight shot on all of these holes, you know.
Yeah.
But in any case, they end up landing first on what was the planet that the cheerleaders were actually on? They were actually on some kind of a high school planet, weren't they?
Something like that, yeah.
Like a nerdy high school kind of a thingamabobber. Because you didn't.
I know the name of their school was like Come Loud Come or something like that.
Magna Cum Lauda Cum.
Yeah, yeah. So that's mainly what I remember from that and the cog ball fucking sequence.
Well, and what I remember, I think, is the one dude that they were talking to that was like, yeah, I was an exchange student from the intergalactic.
Yeah, that part was great.
With the fucking eyes.
Yeah, he's like, look at me when I'm talking to you, son. Other eye, and then he just tells him to fuck off. And the Cogsball thing I thought was genius. For those of you guys listening, that's this game that the people of their planet used to play where they bash around these balls into these goals with their giant cocks. And I was thoroughly impressed with how playable the game actually looked. Like if people had dicks that big, it could easily be a professional sport and it would be fun to watch,
Very true. Almost like Quidditch, except with penises.
Yeah, it was like Quidditch or some shit. It's like Quidditch mixed with fucking rollerball or something because they were getting pretty rough with it out there. But that was actually, wasn't that the origin of why he fired off this impotence rays? Because like he was pissed that they were beating his team or something.
Yeah.
That was so great. All their dicks deflate right in the middle of the game. And they're like tying their dicks in knots with each other and shit.
Which those players come and we meet them once again later on. But after they do they entirely get together with Flesh? Yeah, I think they do. And then they end up going to what is considered the mountains of what was it? The Mammary Mountains.
There you go.
The Mammary Mountains are these mountains that look like giant tits with nipples, ladies and gentlemen, and they come across the giant penetrator.
That dick monster. That was good stuff. I was wondering how they were going to top the Penosaurus from the first movie, and as soon as I saw that, I knew. That's the one right there.
And then it rams them into this gigantic hole, which slides them down to what is considered the G-spot. And the G-spot just so happens to have a cafe. And I love this this random, reference that men are in fact babies without their mojo, and of course this is this is kind of a comical situation because all of these men are sitting in this cafe drinking all kinds of flavors of a mother's milk. Or so to speak.
I think we mentioned last time too how I'm fairly certain Austin Powers borrowed stuff from this, and seeing this one just makes me even more sure of that. Like they had to have ripped some of this stuff from Flesh Gordon because they literally do take their mojos, like you said in this one.
Oh yeah. So. That's pretty much what being impotent means, is that they're taking their sexual energy away or whatever the fuck it is to make them fuck or screw or whatever.
Pretty much. I love the idea that turning the women into frigid bitches and it like causing an ice age on the planet if they don't reverse it. Just genius.
Oh yeah, and of course there is the Queen Frigid, who is in fact this largely pleasantly quaint woman that seems to be sex starved.
Yeah, the presence can't quite get it up, so he's trying to. Isn't that right around the point once they realize Flesh Gordon is coming that they hatch the plan to like take his dick or whatever?
Yeah.
The presence is gonna like get a cock transplant.
Well, by this time, the girlfriend Ardor has actually been kidnapped in some way, shape, or form by the henchmen of evil presence, and she is put into the personality machine, only to turn into evil presence's mother.
Oh yeah, and he's like perfect. That's fucking. That's crazy.
Meanwhile, all that is going on is Igor, like Beetlejuice looking type dude.
Fucking best guy in the movie, honestly. He went for it, man. Like, especially when he had that octopussy liquor and it was like going at her, and he's down there like getting all in there with it. It's like something you'd see in a fucking Guar video, dude.
Well, it was definitely a little Lovecraftian, so to speak.
It was.
Fucking Cthulhu on your pussy, motherfucker. Anyways, going back.
Not to spoil the whole scene, but I'm going to. Fucking when the presence comes in, he's like, "What the hell is that?" And he just grabs it and he fucking throws it down that hole. And that guy's like, "No, I raised it from a baby." Like, I fucking felt that shit, dude. I felt so bad. I raised it since it was a pup.
Going backwards, we kind of missed my favorite scene, actually, is shortly after the G-spot thing. They end up meeting Bazonga Bonkers, who evidently tells them about her father, who who was a professor who ended up going exploring and was lost like many years ago. And they, as they leave the G-spot and end up going down this 500-mile long anal passage, you get some crappy humor in there, literally.
So you get a whole tribe of crap people in there.
They end up kicking 2 pieces of unstuck shit in the anal passage that lead them to a feast that they are going to be part of, because apparently to celebrate they must digest them to become one of them. You are one of us, one of us, one of us.
Yeah. One of them's just smoking a cigar the whole time, which weirdly was like the grossest thing about the scene to me, was him smoking the cigar, because it's like, I don't know, they're already turds and their faces are like covered in chocolate syrup or something to simulate shit. Just the idea of, even though he is a shit person, the idea of like shit transfer from that cigar into his mouth was just bugging me out. I don't know why, dude.
That was their leader, diarrhea.
Yeah. And how does he get out of that? Do you remember?
You mean Flesh or Flesh?
Just all of them as a group.
They end up realizing that the professor is actually one of the pieces of shits, and he's become one of them. And he points to a poop-shaped ship, airship.
To fly him over to the ice planet. And then fucking Flexi ends up giving him some X-Lax gum and like forces them all to have a bowel movement, which means like all the shit people go fucking stampeding away and they're able to get freed and ride the shit rocket to the ice planet. Do they even give that second planet a name, or do they just call it an ice planet?
I believe they just call it the ice planet or whatnot. I mean, you get names of like the Mammary mountains and things of that nature, but you don't really get to know the name of the intergalactic planet that they are on. Nor do I think that we know which planet the cosmic cheerleaders are actually from. But
yeah, I don't think it actually gives it a name.
Not like the first one where it was Planet Porno.
He does make mention of that though when they're in the giant anal tunnel or whatever, and he's like, "Man, I thought Planet Porno was gross, but this is shitty," or something like that. That's great. Amazing.
So ultimately, the whole reason why this impotency is going on is because some kind of a ray gun is taking the impotency from the planets all around, and you keep getting like news flashes of like these impotency happenings, like it's a crime spree or something like that.
Well, right. At one point, it starts going back to Earth. I think, like,
yeah, you only get one
that recurring segment.
One scene of a rocking car, and the first scene has the chicks saying, "Well, what happened? You didn't get less excited because of my wooden leg, did you?"
Yeah, and then later when it starts to get frigid and there's like ice around the car and stuff, she's like, "What? You don't like my glass eye or something?" She's getting all pissy. Fucking great.
So, ultimately, it comes down to when Flesh ultimately meets. He finds where Ardor, Dale Ardor, is being kept, and Flexi jerk off ends up with some kind of a gun, and ultimately he does have some kind of sex with the queen.
Some pretty fierce sex, actually. She's going for it, like especially after she pulls off that paper bag on her head. Oh my god,
Beastly sex. Some hot, sweaty sea monkey love there going on.
Yeah, and after she's just munching on a big ass sausage while she's telling him the shit.
So apparently, she tells him that there is some kind of like box with like some green substance in it or something like that, and it evidently holds the real power that is supposed to be like the returning the ray gun with whatever substance it originally had, so that he could help bring back the impotence, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like reverse it, because I think that they basically at some point explain that what originally had happened to turn it into an impotence ray in the first place is the dark presence, who's later revealed to be a familiar face, had like used it to put out too much sex rays. Like it's basically an overheated sex ray is the impotence ray, you know?
I might as well just say it. It ended up being Mr. Wang, who
Wang the perverted,
who kind of looks like RoboCop in here.
He's like Cyborg Wang in this.
Cyborg Wang.
Fucking reminded me of Goldar from Power Rangers for some reason. I don't know, just the general shape of
it. Damn those Power Rangers. Anyways, so ultimately, they do in fact get this green substance, and it turns out that the Igor guy, he actually kind of ends up helping them in the end by evidently using some kind of condom to put over the ray, because evidently all you needed was a filter to
he says some play on words when he says it too. He's like, how do you calm down a hot, or how do you cool down a hot something? And then he's like, with a condom, like basically saying like, how do you make sex less good? Just put this fucking condom on there. And that was great. He was a good dude. I don't know. He just wanted to do his experiments. He was all about the cock replacements and dong enlargements or whatever. And Flexi was experimenting with breast enlargements. So together they could have made like a good team, you know?
Oh yeah.
We almost got to see that for a minute.
I guess this was the first film that I had actually ever seen anything, because this was not my first time viewing this. This is actually like my third time, and I actually enjoy this every time. I enjoy both of them over time.
Yeah, they're like, I like that they're so different from each other. As much as I loved the first one, this one they took everything over the top in it, and so it's just a lot of fun. And visually, the movie looks fucking awesome.
Well, to me, I listened to radio programs at one point in time, and so when Ardor and Jerkoff are on the ship coming to rescue Flesh, when they're going back and forth like that, that's like theatrical stuff, drama stuff that I would necessarily hear on like an old radio program or something like that. But doctor, what do we do? That kind of thing. So
yeah, I can see how you could get that vibe from it. And like the miniatures, all that they definitely upped the ante with that. I don't know what you call those matte paintings in the backgrounds of stuff to make it look like a space background or like weird clouds or whatever.
Yeah.
They basically recreate the fucking never-ending story castle on that ice planet.
How about the cities that you see that are that almost look like they're from Hot Wheels or something like that? You know?
Yeah, I loved it. You know, it's all that stuff was really good. We got a brief little bit of claymation back again with that
Just
creature that tries to bust into their ship and makes that chick's boobies bounce. That was pretty good stuff.
just a little bit.
And I like the change in the humor. I like that in this one they didn't spend as much, because the first one, like we said, is very much like, I would say, a worthy send up to like the old serials and stuff. This is just goofy trauma movie in space type shit. And they just went out and had fun with it. They didn't try to worry about making it an homage so much as the first one was. This one, they just made it like a poopy fucking sci-fi space opera, you know?
Well, to me, it's like they did everything that they didn't do in the first one because how sick can you get? How gross can you go? You know, how demented can you get if you're talking about shit, or if you're going through a human body with fecal matter? You know.
Yeah, like the first one, definitely the sex aspect of it was like a lot higher, you know, and I fully agree. If you had mixed that with the poop and fart humor, it would have been kind of gross, you know. And whereas in this one, they go more poop and fart centric, and there is like plenty of nudity, all that stuff that you would expect, and there is plenty of like sexual innuendo. But it doesn't have as much of that softcore porn vibe. It has more of like a trauma movie vibe where it's just, we got to throw some tits and ass in here and let's get a lady in a bondage suit walking by over there kind of thing, you know?
Well, it's kind of got a Dr. Frankenstein thing going on, run by the pendulum executioner, you know? So...
Yeah, I can see that.
So
yeah, it's got a lot of cool elements to it, and I think the change in tone and the change in the whole feel, but it does have enough from the first one that you feel like it is a sequel to it, you know.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that these worlds that he's created here with the cheerleaders and the other ones could be within the same world as the Robin Hood character or the
oh yeah. Yeah, it fits in, and it's just, you know, the difference in humor I think is the funnest part about it that gives it that diversity, you know. Like the first one is dicks and tits, this one is poops and farts, you know. And you get the best of both worlds in each of them, you know. And
oh yeah. What did you think about Dale Ardor's character this time around? Was she anything like the first one?
In some way, I mean, in the respect that she ends up having to do the damsel in distress thing at some point, she seemed a bit smarter in this one, and like obviously they were wanting her to have a bigger role.
Not as much of a bimbo in this one as she was in the other one.
And you know, just on the surface of it, I think this lady was hotter than the lady that played her in the last movie too. So that helps with the type of movies that these are, you know. I don't know. I thought that she held her own a bit and took some initiative. I mean, her and friggin' Flexi were flying off to rescue Flash at the beginning of this one, and you know, she did her butthole plug-in or whatever out there in space, and she was adequate at that. So.
Oh, what's interesting is when they were in the G-Spot cafe, Flexi Jerkoff, when he turned into the baby, he started to sound like Mork from Mork a little bit. I was getting kind of a Mork from Mork vibe. You know. What did you think of his character this time around? Was it as quirky as he was in the first one? I know both of them. Well, I felt like the first jerk off. It felt like he was just anyone that he could find at the moment, and he was just like a boring office dude that ended up being Flexi Jerkoff in the first one, where the where in the second one he kind of had a bit more of a character.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to see. It's hard to say where the line in that is. I mean, it could be that because he had that first performance to work off of, because I got that impression from it. Definitely, I liked the dude, and his shit was still the funniest in the movie, I think. Flexi's humor was a little bit more subtle in the first one, but the part of that is the mood of this movie. Everything was over the top compared to the first one. So I think this dude did an amazing job at playing the character. I don't know because that first dude brought his own little special flavor to it that this guy did a pretty bang up job of like imitating and incorporating into his performance as the character. So,
oh yeah.
I would say in terms of like recasting a role, Flexi Jerkoff might be a really good example of it,
I love the parts every time he goes to a different planet. He's like, "Oh, this planet we can breathe on. This planet has oxygen."
Remember the H2 ass when they were flying through the asteroid belt?
Just remember this is H2, but
it's just great.
That whole scenario, I could just play that back in my mind, the asteroids, because they look like rhinoceros asses,
do.
with like the veins and shit, without the tail. And then, of course,
anyone who's seen one of those guys make at the zoo knows that you don't want to be behind that ass when it erupts, but yeah, I thought Flexi ruled.
Never look at another rhinoceros's ass again when you think of this.
Yeah,
movie.
You'll always forever think of this shit.
And never go on the dark side of the moon.
No. I don't know. I think in terms of the characters, like the main three characters that came back from the previous movie, I think Flesh was probably the weaker link acting wise.
I have to agree because and what's interesting to me is apparently later on he actually played in Kickboxer 2 as evidently, which I don't know whether his role was any better, but he
did have a mean roundhouse on him. I'll say that. Like that, I noticed right away. That was like some Johnny Cage shit when he roundhoused that guy.
The way he acted, he kind of reminded me of. Do you remember Waterboy with Adam Sandler? That one football player that kept saying "water sucks." It really.
Oh yeah.
Gatorade. It was just. That black-haired guy who was it? I think he was also in Grandma's Boy too.
Yeah, that dude.
Yeah,
I never can remember his name. He's one of those Happy Madison guys.
The one who made them smoke a deer, or something like that. But anyways, but the way that he was acting reminded me of his acting. So.
Yeah, it's just in that guy's being intentionally bad. This dude that was playing Flesh, I don't know that it had the delivery like the other people where I felt like they were fully aware of how campy their acting was. I feel like he was just doing the best that he could, reading the lines that they gave him, And that being said, it still added some that funny element to it, that unintentionally campy shit. And his hair was magnificent, and like we said, he had a mean roundhouse, so he did his job.
Yeah.
He had some good facial expressions, like when they were like, "No, honest, I don't even want it," or whatever. And then that girl like opens her top and he gets a boner right there. And he's looking down at it like, "Oh."
Or when the penetrator was trying to get at Dr. Jerkoff, and he was like, "Just say no."
Yeah, that was amazing. And then he just leaps up there and is getting flung around on the fucking dick. That was good stuff.
Fucking awesome.
So what did you think of like the villains this time around? I guess I really liked the way that Dark Presence guy looked, like just the design of his outfit.
I loved the design of his outfit. I mean, it was kind of like I said, it was kind of like he was an executioner. I kind of felt like if you put him with a cat with a claw in his hand, which actually he did have a claw, didn't he?
He
So,
did.
If you actually saw him sit in a chair and just saw the back of him stroking a cat, he would probably be Inspector Gadget's Mr. Claw or something like that. You know?
Oh yeah. I like it. Yeah, he was cool. I always like when they put that like slight curl to the executioner hood type thing, where it like, you know, instead of just coming to a point, it kind of curls over a bit. Like it just makes it look more sinister. I don't know why. That shit, he reminded me of like someone easily you could have seen in Power Rangers, even before he became Goldong or whatever, and fucking took off his shit and revealed that he was Meccano Wang.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't the guy who was kind of like an Igor kind of guy, was his name Master Bader?
I feel like they called him that, or she was just saying that as an insult. That's the only time I felt like they maybe referred to him by name, unless the Presence did it at one point.
I was trying to figure out his name and all of this because you really did the Igor guy. I have to say, even though I enjoy certain scenes here, like the asteroids and the whole shit, you know, scenes and whatnot, I did enjoy his take on the Frankenstein monster kind of thing. I even kind of like
amazing.
I even kind of like how Ardor kind of, you know, was barking like a dog on the floor for a little bit. It was fucking awesome.
It was. I think in terms of acting, that guy fucking killed it. Like he went so hard with that role, that Igor did, and every one of his scenes was hard not to laugh at, you know, because especially that like weird sort of mad scientist laugh thing that he had going on, like all exaggerated. That shit was fucking funny. His eyes were super creepy looking.
And I don't even think that Queen Frigid was really at all that entirely evil.
Nah, she just needed she just needed to get laid.
And she was played by Maureen Webb, who actually has been in quite a lot of. She's been a casting director in quite a lot of roles. I think. Let's see if I can. She was a casting director for a movie called A Christmas to Remember, Operation Christmas, Army of One. Let's see, Colossal, which from what I understand was an awesome movie. Let's see.
That's rad.
But yeah, I mean, she's been in over like 122 movies as like the person who goes out and casts some of these things. So
yeah, she seemed like a good sport about it. I mean, I'm sure like she isn't always trying to be up in movies like this, but she played along and had fun with it, probably almost equally as much as the Igor dude did.
Blood Rain Deliverance, the second movie she cast.
I still gotta see those. I haven't seen the first one. Played the game though.
In the Name of the King, White Noise 2. I was just looking at Kraken, Tentacles of the Deep. The Tooth Fairy.
I think I've seen In the Name of the King. Isn't that fucking Dungeon Siege movie or whatever?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. Jason Statham.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty decent too for an Uwe Boll movie.
Yeah, dude. Well, he'll box you if you don't like it. You ever heard that story?
Yeah.
That's right? So amazing. It's hard to not love it.
He'll Mike Tyson your ass if you don't.
He's kind of a beast, movies. You know. If you're an untrained fighter, Uwe will probably fuck you up. But that's super rad, dude. And you know, I wondered why no one else came back except for Wang. He must have been friends with the dude that made these, because it is the same guy that made them both, correct?
Yeah. Not the writer, but Howard Ziehm. He is actually one of the men. Pioneers behind the porn industry, because
oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that before.
Yeah, in fact, one of his films was actually the first film to end up in any theater as a porn movie.
That's pretty That's actually kind of, considering how much of a staple of like seedy theaters porno has been over the years. That's kind of actually a super cool historical accomplishment right there.
Well,
that he had.
Porn gets a bad rap for being like vicious and mean to women, but there are some women who actually probably fucking like the job that they do in the porn industry. So.
There's some women that like watching it too.
I know, right?
I think all of us probably owe porn a little bit of a debt of gratitude over the years. If any of us are being honest. If you grew up as a teenager in the era since the printed magazine, at some point we've all had an experience with it, you know.
In those lonely nights of puberty. When we weren't
well, people forget, you know, like if this dude was pioneering porn before he did that first Flesh movie in '74 or whatever, then he was doing porn back when most of them had actual plots and were kind of movies, you know. That's like a symptom of the internet era, is people just banging in porno movies. I remember some weird plots to porno movies.
So do I. And like I said, many independent films actually skate the boundaries of going almost to that very edge point where you almost can't call it a porno, and yet you can't call it, you know, a straight on like sex movie. You know, sometimes it just sometimes they stand on the precipice and be like, yeah, bitch, I'm here. And I'm gonna stick my dick in it, and we're gonna call this a movie, okay?
That's pretty much it. And they pull it off to great effect both times around, you know. And it's super cool to see that this dude was able to go from making porn to making a couple actually fun movies that, you know, you could get away with probably seeing in a normal movie theater.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could have definitely seen this like in the drive-through through at least a couple of times.
Right, some seedy grindhouse somewhere, you know.
Right, not exactly where everyone's pulling their dicks out and whacking off to it or something like that, but you know, where some classic. Yeah, but he'd probably find himself in some children's theater somewhere. So.
Oh, God.
But in any case, what did you think of the? Was there? There was some music involved.
There was. That fucking opening track is a banger, dude. Like, sadly, we didn't get the pulp art, but they weren't going for that shit in this one, so it would have made sense in the intro. But we got like just an apps that reeks of the fucking 80s, man. You almost feel like you're about to watch Ferris Bueller or something, firing that shit up, and then it's totally not that at all.
Right.
Well, they do go to school at one point. That's got something in common with Ferris Bueller, I guess.
I suppose, but to me, Ferris Bueller is kind of like taking the day off from everything, including school.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece of a movie, but it's pretty fun. That would be so weird if there was like some weird 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon thing that somehow connects Flesh Gordon to Ferris Bueller.
Right.
Like this dude worked with this guy on a movie that worked with this guy. It probably exists, you know, with the way that like the film industry works, especially back then, you know.
True. But in any case, so
music was banging though. I thought even the song during the poop sort of tribe thing was kind of funny. It was like a jazzed up little poop song.
I gotta mention that though for a moment. They were holding plungers. Plungers, man. Those shit-suited men were holding plungers.
Well, and the chief, I think he had a plunger that had a bunch of those little like float things from the back of your toilet, like around it decoratively. So it was like a shaman stick, kind of.
Of course, did you notice that they had a crapateria?
I did. There were so many good things about that. Like when they first go in that shit tunnel, and he's like, "Do you think Dr. Adam is still alive?" And he's like, "Probably not, but he could be. What do you call it? Fucking foraging for peanuts and corn." Like,
man, this is a 500 mile long anal canal. Let's keep going before we get in deep shit.
Did we never find out whose anal canal that was, or is that just like a geological occurrence on that planet?
Well, because they were because they went down a hole that seemed to have some cum in it from the penetrator. They were coming from the Mammary Mountains, which could have been inside a female's body. Per se.
Maybe it's just the planet is alive and it's got these orifices and appendages, and
it's very possible. I mean, even in Star Wars, they went inside an asteroid, and it ended up being a monster that they went inside.
We say fucking almost went in, like, I guess a better end though.
Right? It would be totally different if they went through the anus of the damn thing.
Hey, if they hadn't chose to fly out the teeth, that would have been the only other option, as a straight shot to the back with the Falcon. And
true. One wonders if that monster, that Jabba the Hutt sent them out to that had all them fucking teeth. That might have been the
Sarlacc.
That might have been the anal end, you know.
That was pretty much like an anal Sarlacc that they ended up in there. Oh,
wow. But in any case, sorry to make fun of Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
I love it.
But in any case, okay, now special effects. Were there many special effects in this film?
There was, like I mentioned before, the miniatures, they seemed like they put more work into that for sure, and the backgrounds and like creating the world. It didn't have as much of that 50s sci-fi feel like the first Flesh Gordon did. It had a lot more of a just low budget 80s flick feel to it. And it all was very effective, I think. My favorite thing, obviously, was the Octopussy liquor. I think that thing was great. That whole scene was just so fucking gnarly, and you got the old fucking Igor down there just getting in there with it. And fucking, it was amazing. The claymation was not as good as in the first one. I will say that. The claymation creature was cool, and it was a nice throwback to the first one, but that felt like they just kind of rushed it in there so that they could have that element. They didn't put as much finesse into it as like the penisaurs or the fucking like the cockroach robot beetle thing that he fought in the first one. Like those were. There
was even some, I think, animation going on just a little bit from here from time to time, because when he shot the ray gun of the impotency down to Earth, you saw that red animated thing on Earth. Yeah, that was cool. That shot down to Earth the first time and the second time, I think. But
the freeze ray was really cool too. That was a well done, simple. Like obviously they're just putting people in fiberglass shells or whatever, Spinal Tap style. But it was fucking awesome the way that they cut it. Like they did it in a way that was pretty seamless, So it was clearly a cheap effect, but it was done convincingly, which makes the whole thing.
I think the makeup on the pieces of shit was awesome.
It was.
However they made the asteroid belt, I mean, I understand that some of it has to go with strings, the fucking things hanging from the ceiling, but however the fuck they made those things, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Zardoz, just a little bit, the way when Zardoz had the head floating in the air. Yeah.
I like to imagine someone spent an inordinate amount of time carving asteroids out of like foam before they did all that, and that just had to have been such a funny process, like carving the little buttholes on there and stuff.
I would love for someone to put together a set of these two films put together and just see how the fuck they actually created some of the scenes in here, because that would be awesome.
That would be, and I'd really love some cast interviews or commentaries, because both movies do seem like, despite the slightly pervy subject matter and the crude humor, they had to have been an absolute fucking blast to be on the set for it. I
and to
can't
look back
imagine anybody had a bad time, you know.
and to look back and be able to tell your grandchildren, yeah, I was that piece of shit. That
Yeah.
was on that movie.
I want to be a piece of shit for Halloween, Grandma.
I mean, the stories that you could tell your grandchildren. Yeah, I was Robunda Hooters. You know?
Oh man, it'd be so fucking funny to tell your grandkids that you were in Flash Gordon, and then when they eventually get old enough to look into it, they discover that
I was Dr. Flexi Jerkoff.
And we found out in this we found out in this one that he has a sister called Had to Jerk Off, which is amazing.
True.
It's good stuff.
Had to jerk off. That was a good one. That was a good one. Alrighty. Did you have anything else that you wanted to explain about this movie before we, or share with the audience before we moved on? I mean, I know we talked about a ton of scenes, and there's always things that I seem to see more every time I watch either one of these.
I imagine that it'll be the same for me too. They're both movies that are definitely worthy of repeat viewing. And I don't know. I think I would just double down on what I said, that, you know, if you're going into it expecting the second one to just be more of the same of the first one, you're not gonna, you won't be disappointed in that. It has like elements of that, but it does its own thing too. And I think they complement each other very well. So in the future, I'll probably just double feature them back to back. And I would recommend anybody trying to just check them out to just do that immediately.
And don't be afraid to check them out for sure, because they're not exactly what they appear to be. I mean,
at all. Yeah. I mean, they are skin flicks, but it's not porn. So
I know. When I posted about this, my dad was like, "What are you trying to do? Advertise porn?" I'm like, "No,
no, it's full tits and ass." You know?
But in any case, well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I think a lot of the film can just kind of float on its own with whatever we talked about it. I mean, we stripped it down to its basics. We've compared it to the other film, and it's pretty much its own like animal. But it also complements the other one, like you said.
Sure.
I think, and it is for sure at least a film that you should at least check out once, at least in your life, if not in reverse.
Yeah, if you're a fan of like low budget or just sci-fi in general, but especially if you're a fan of like sort of, I don't know what you call them, like irreverent, over the top, low budget movies, definitely should be on your radar.
I mean, if you like some sick toilet humor, I mean, definitely
should be on your radar. For sure.
Alrighty, man. Well, in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. Definitely check out Flesh Gordon Meets the Cosmic Cheerleaders. It's definitely a favorite of mine. It's in one of my top 20 film lists. I was so happy to share it with Mo here, and
thank you.
Hope to eventually share it with the group eventually down the road to see what their thoughts were on this film. But there we have it. Flesh Gordon Meets the Cosmic Cheerleaders, and I think you can still find it on Henstooth Video. So check that out.
It's a nice looking release.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if they have a Blu-ray out of them yet or not. I'm not sure. But,
dude, if they put out like a deluxe fucking set, like a box set, it needs to come in like one of those cock ships that folds open or something. That'd be amazing.
They need one of the companies, Arrow or something like that, needs to put them fuckers out there for maybe Vinegar Syndrome. Maybe Vinegar Syndrome could actually do that. In fact, I call you out, Vinegar Syndrome. Put a double feature of Flesh Gordon and Flesh Gordon 2 Meets the Cosmic Cheerleaders on some fucking double feature. I kid you
make
not.
the case look like a dick and put the discs in each of the balls right there.
Right?
Right? That's what I want.
Put it in a fucking spaceship dick model or some shit like
yeah.
that. There we go. The original Cosmic Powers vehicle.
If you want to include a couple asteroid decals for my car, I'll take those too.
Or just put it in an asteroid.
Or like a foam one that fits onto your tailpipe, dude, so that it shoots out the fucking smoke out the ass.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could see that. Alrighty, man. Well, in any case, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Mo, and then we'll get the fuck out of here for the other conversation that we have going on tonight.
Hell yeah. Well, I am Mosley. I do videos for Rebel Gaming Club on occasion. Obviously, I've been doing stuff with Dave here on this channel and Inside Movies Galore. And I have my own channel called Drunken Master Studios, where I occasionally review movies, hopefully a lot more occasionally in the near future. But if you want to check out some reviews, it's mostly the type of shit that you'd probably like if you watch any of Dave's stuff. Low budget horror, high budget horror, stupid movies. It just runs the gamut.
But done a hell of a lot better than me with all those video techniques that you know more than me. So in any case, you're one of us, dude.
Thanks, buddy. Means a lot.
In any case, my name is David Straggy. I run Inside Movies Galore. I'm one of the founding fathers, but I run it with most of the shitheads that we're going to go on with. And if you don't mind me saying that, because we all know each other very well. In any case, I also do reviews on Delusions of Grandeur. So come and check some of the reviews that I have out. I just finished my American Horror Project reviews, and they're up on my channel, so go check those out. And I plan on checking out Death Toilet 2 and the rest of Anne Denia Productions, because evidently the director of all of the films that deal with Death Toilet 2 wants to have me film reviews of all of my reviews and somehow put a movie together of them. I don't know how he's going to do it, but evidently he says if it takes a year, 2, let's do it. So
that's super bad.
In any case,
didn't you just put up a review for The Child or something like right before we started this too, or am I tripping?
Yeah, that was the review for The Child. So check out those reviews. That was The Child was actually the last one in the second volume of American Horror Project, which was pretty fun. I mean, the 70s and 80s were kind of an obscure time, you know. So, in any case, thanks for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Thanks for the traffic ahead of time. Appreciate it. We just love talking shooting the shit about these films. So stick around. We got Santa Slay as a discussion that's coming up on the Inside Movies Galore channel. It's going to be some good times, and stick around for the holidays. We got some great stuff for you.
In the spirit of this movie, I'm going to get laid right now with some Lace classics.
Oh, he just blessed us. Anyways, catch y'all later, folks.